Wow, these stories are too large. I need to give my team a better understanding of user story splitting. What is a user story? It's a unit of value delivery, not just a unit of work. We split user stories because we want them to meet the invest criteria. First, the story should be independent. It should be deployable by itself. It should stand on its own and provide value. It should not be dependent on any other stories. Next, it should be negotiable. It should be adjustable through collaborative discussion. Remember, it's not a requirement spec. User stories should spark conversation. Of course, it should be valuable. A user story should always represent explicit customer or business value. There should be a clear answer to why this particular user story is being implemented. It should be estimable, as in it should be able to be measured by the team. There should be some way to gauge the required level of effort. It should be as small as possible. It should be completed in a relatively short period of time. Remember, one of our key goals is the delivery of small chunks of value. How can we forget testable? In other words, its completion can be easily confirmed. Each user story should have very clear acceptance criteria. We also split user stories so that they can be completed within an iteration. Let's go quickly back to the idea of the short duration. Ideally, we slice user stories so that they can be analyzed, designed, developed, and tested within one iteration. We also split user stories so that we can separate high and low value functionality. We might start with a large user story or feature and then split or slice it into smaller units of value. We then can take those smaller units and prioritize them based on customer value. This makes it very easy to separate high from low value user stories. Subsequently, this allows us to identify the minimally viable product, the core functionality, and the essential flow. To reiterate, we're taking large user stories or features and breaking them down into smaller standalone pieces of value for our customer. Now, in order to do this, we use what we call splitting patterns. One pattern often used is to split stories by workflow steps. Large user stories and features can be broken into smaller stories that represent workflow steps associated with the functionality. Another pattern is to split user stories based upon interface and data variations. For example, we have a user story that states, as a customer, I want to submit my application online so that I do not have to go to the submission office. In this case, the story can be split based upon whether you want to submit your application via laptop or via smartphone. Another commonly used pattern is to break larger user stories down into create, read, update, and delete operations. In this example, we have a user story that reads, as a customer, I want to manage my applications so that I can process them in a timely manner. Based on the operations associated with managing applications, this user story can be broken into stories for creating applications, updating applications, and deleting applications. Now that we have split our user stories into smaller units of value, we need to make sure that they are vertically sliced in order to account for the development and architectural layers necessary to ensure delivery of that value. These development and architectural layers are often represented as tasks or subtasks within the split stories. I hope this helps as you move along with your Agile development. See you next time.